Hi, everyone. I am back with chapter 7 of Little Faith. Chapter 7 starts on page 63, so I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to turn to that page. Peg and Isaac sat at the kitchen table. The boy wore one of Lyle's old Sunday dress shirts backwards, buttons behind him, red paint splattered over the light blue fabric. The house was warm and smelled of slow-cooked pork, brown sugar, and cinnamon. Lyle's mouth watered. "What are you two birds working on?" Lyle called out as he sat down and slowly unknotted his red-winged boots. Peg whispered into Isaac's ear, and the boy called out, "None of your beeswax," then giggled before returning to the construction paper he was painting on. Lyle stood, reached a hand into the refrigerator, popped a bottle of beer. He kissed the boy's head and smelled in the follicles of his hair, fresh air, and strawberry shampoo. He picked a twig from the tangles of blonde hair and then a bit of leaf. That night, after Shiloh had washed and dried the dishes, after Peg had settled Isaac in his bed and read him several Berenstain Bears books, the three adults sat in the living room, absent-mindedly watching Antiques Roadshow, with Peg occasionally interjecting, "We had something like that in our house growing up," or, "Oh, I remember that toy." She often narrated the TV shows they watched together, sometimes offering her own real-time critiques. Lyle was dozing off when Shiloh cleared her throat and said, "I have to tell you both something." He sat up in his chair and clicked the volume down low. Shiloh studied her fidgeting hands. "Look, it's been wonderful being home, and I so appreciate your willingness to let Isaac and I stay here. I promise it won't be forever." Peg sat forward. "Darling, you're welcome to stay here as long as you need, as long as you want. We sincerely love having you both live here." Their daughter moved her long brown hair away from her face, drew it behind her ears. Her skin was pale, her dark brown eyes serious and alive. The light in the living room was soft and dim, the house quiet. "I just wanted you to know that I'm looking for an apartment in La Crosse. We can't be here permanently. It's important to me to be close to my church, and that's what I want to talk to you about. I don't want you to stand in judgment of what I believe or how I raise Isaac." "Shiloh, we would never dream of," began Peg. "You're a wonderful mother. It's just that my faith is the most important thing in my life, my faith in Isaac, and you two, of course. And I would love it if we could all try to worship together. If you would just visit my church with Isaac and me." "Of course we could visit your church, Shiloh," Peg said, some measure of desperation in her voice. "We would love that, wouldn't we, Lyle?" In such moments, even the briefest of pauses can be interpreted as reticence, even a refusal. And though Lyle had no interest whatsoever in attending any church other than the one he had been baptized, confirmed, and married in, he was suddenly aware that his daughter held the power to move his grandson away from him. A thought so bleak to Lyle it seemed akin to amputation. So even as particles of time whizzed past him, the conversation fast taking on a new intensity and meaning, he forced himself to quickly answer, "Absolutely." Shiloh smiled as if in victory. "I'm so happy. It hasn't been easy raising Isaac alone, and there were many days when the only thing that got me through was my faith." A sadness overcame Lyle, as if he just gulped a very cold glass of water that chilled his veins. There were years in Shiloh's 20s when she had not returned their phone calls, when letters and packages addressed and postmarked to her were returned as undeliverable. Difficult visits scattered over years when they knew little about her, knew not even the color of her hair before she showed up on their stoop at Christmas. It was really Isaac who had brought them back together. Shiloh moving to Minneapolis and those first telephone calls, mostly conducted between Peg and Shiloh, when for the first time since her early childhood, their daughter asked for help, and how they had jumped, leaped to any chance to assist her. Lyle moving her belongings into a new apartment, he and Hoot carrying furniture from the bed of the truck up 3 flights of winding, narrow stairs to Shiloh's stuffy studio apartment. Then trips to the hardware store for mouse traps and smoke detectors, a trip to the grocery store to fill her refrigerator, and despite all Shiloh's protestations, Peg had given her $500 in cash. "Don't be silly," Peg pleaded with her. "Think about the money not as a gift to you, but as a gift to our grandchild." Lyle and Peg knew nothing of Isaac's father. Peg had only a handful of times with Shiloh, waving her hand in dismissal and saying, "He's not even worth thinking about, trust me," or, "I don't want to talk about it." It was Peg who had accompanied Shiloh to the hospital. Peg, who waited outside the delivery room, Peg, who stayed on with Shiloh in her apartment so that their daughter could adjust to breastfeeding and sleep deprivation, Peg, who fixed meals, laundered clothes, helped change diapers, vacuumed, took out the garbage, bought groceries. I just can't imagine, Peg had told Lyle over the phone. I don't know how she'll do it all alone. He heard her begin to cry. It is a helpless feeling when your own child, your only child, rejects your love and support, like a flower turning away from the sun. But Lyle understood then, as he did now, that this grown child must be left to make her own decisions, her own mistakes. And what he had always loved about Shiloh, after all, what he had always respected, was her strength, her independence. We'll come with you this Sunday, Peg said now, nodding her affirmation. I can't wait. So then, you don't want to come to church with us at St. Olaf's? Cloud said quietly. Everyone has been so happy to see you. You must know that. And think of Charlie. Shiloh shook her head. I have my own beliefs, she answered carefully, her mood darkening slightly, like a light bulb flickering in a windowless room. He did not push the matter, not quite understanding how her beliefs could be so radically different from better than those of the church she had grown up in, attending. But he did as he had done his whole life when visited with confrontation by his daughter. He rose from his chair, kissed Shiloh on the forehead, said goodnight to Peg, and walked to his bedroom. Lyle had grown up in a family where he could scarcely recall his parents even so much as raising their voices, let alone openly disagreeing with each other. And he had no interest in fighting anyone, least of all his beloved daughter. If you have lost your spot, we're on the top of page 68. In bed that night, he stared out the window. Everything was where it always was. The boulevard maples and ash of cottonwoods and oaks, the rust-pocked cars of his neighbors, the fire hydrant, the broken sidewalks bowed up by persistent tree roots. How do you disagree with someone you love so fiercely? He wondered. He felt something smoldering inside of him. He did not like confrontation, and yet, if Shiloh's church was the force taking her and Isaac away from them, he was already predisposed to disliking it. Sometime later, he heard Peg enter the bedroom. For her take off her clothes, don her nightgown, slip into her side of the bed. Her cold feet found his calves. Good Lord, your feet are cold, woman, he said. You're lucky I love you. It's your job to warm me up. They were silent for a while. I wish I understood her, he said. You don't have to, Peg sighed. You just have to love her. I do. She patted his shoulder, so then grin and bear it. Bear what? Holy rollers, Bible thumpers, fire and brimstoners, whatever awaits us over there. Is that what she believes? I'm going to sleep. He turned toward her. Peg, is that what she believes? He could feel her gaze through the bedroom darkness. A train whistled Doppler down toward them. And soon they could feel it trembling in their bed, a Canadian Pacific maybe, or a Burlington Northern Santa Fe, shaking the small town where it drowsed, shuddering the china cabinets, quaking the curios and knickknacks nestled on the dusty shelves, swaying the mirrors and framed photographs hanging from perilous sheetrock nails, shivering soda cans in the refrigerators of the shotgun bungalows down by the tracks. At the only bar in town, the Railroader, Budweiser and Michelob and Miller High Life and Coors bottles would be vibrating and jitterbugging across the ancient and abused mahogany bar. It was a piercing sound that at once a person wanted to escape, even as it was a reassurance too, like the hand on a cradle rocking back and forth, the train on its tracks. Ha, 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 ha. The metronomic rhythm of rural America after dark. Everything is going to be all right. The world is still spinning, the trains are still running, the sun will rise tomorrow, and so on. I don't care what she believes, Lyle. I really don't. I love her and I love Isaac, and if she wants me to visit her church, I'll do that, happily. No sweat off my brow, she said, kissing him goodnight. He turned back toward the window. There was a cat out there, slinking through the darkness, tail raised like a question mark. And that is the end of chapter 7. I'll see you back for chapter 8.